Hello and welcome to Tartan Touchdown in conversation with, a series of podcasts with people from across the world of American football. Joining me in the chair today for this episode is Sarah. Sarah, how are you?
Great, thanks, Dan. So happy to be here. It's nice and early, so which will maybe give a hint to our listeners about what time zone we're speaking to. But no, I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on. Very excited.
For those that don't know what time it is 8:13 a.m. for me and Sarah, so that might be a clue to where our guest is in the world, but we'll come to that in a wee second. So for our guest, we had to, like I said, we had to set our alarm clocks because we've truly gone across the globe. Bear with me as I run through our list of titles and jobs that she does. let's see if I can get this one right. So we'll get qualified lawyer, sports journalist, the voice of American Football Australia, play-by-play caller for American football, swimming and hockey commentator, broadcast host, travel writer, skier, Sydney Swans fan, and San Francisco 49ers fan. Joining us all the way from Sydney, Australia, it's Kate Allman. Welcome to Tartan Touchdown, Kate. How are you?
Hey, thank you so much, Dan. Wow, I've never had such a good introduction. I'd love that if you could endorse me on LinkedIn for all of those things, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on, and sorry to wake you up so early.
No, not at all. We did give you the option of it morning or evening, so it's our own fault. We could have just told you we wanted to do the night time, but
we gave you the option. Those things.
And in that massive rundown, have I missed anything, or is that covered? All your jobs that you do?
Sorry, what was that? I mean, I've got to be honest, Dan, your accent is really challenging for me.
Dan, do you know Dan is the one we've had the most feedback on. His accent is so strong.
It's very strong. I know.
Yeah.
Sorry, you really feel my accent's probably very strong, but yours.
Oh no, yours is. I think because So this is going to sidetrack. I grew up watching Neighbours on the on TV.
Yeah.
And I grew up watching like H2O and like a whole bunch of other Australian programs. So this is fine for me. That's
good.
Sorry. And the list of jobs and everything that you do, I've listed. Did I miss anything? Is there anything else to add to that list?
Oh, surfer.
Obviously.
I don't know. I like to think I'm quite funny. So I don't know if that's like a job, but I'd put that in. If you can endorse me on that, that would probably help. You've covered it. You've covered it pretty well. Thank you. Journalist, I guess, is the kind of other one. I think you covered that as well.
Yeah, perfect. So myself and Gav have been chatting to you for quite a while. We're going back middle of last year when we first started chatting to you, so it's great to finally be able to sit down with you and have a great conversation. Before we get into it properly, how's your injury recovery going?
Oh, my knee, yeah. It's for those who don't know, I tore my ACL about a year ago, just over a year ago, and I had surgery and had an ACL reconstruction. And if you follow sport, you will have heard those three letters. If you've done it yourself, you would know how difficult it is. And I think we don't necessarily empathize enough with players who do it because we hear it so often. And until you've done it, you really don't know. But it's a tough injury to come back from. The surgery really does you in, and you kind of lose a lot of strength. My quad shriveled up to the size of, half its size previously. And I've spent the last 12 months kind of rehabbing to get it back, working really hard in the gym. And every rehab has ups and downs, and I've had a couple of setbacks, and actually just recently had another setback. But none of these things are linear, and we are getting there. So I'm going back skiing next week, which is a huge deal. The running is kind of up and down at the moment because, as I said, setbacks. So it's just amazing once you go through it how quickly some of those NFL players get back and what they're doing. People like Saquon Barkley, when I saw him leap backwards over a guy, knowing he'd done his ACL, that made me feel very good because I thought, if he can do it, maybe normal people can get somewhere, halfway to that. And if I could get a halfway or a quarter of the way to that, I'll be happy.
It seems to be a running theme. You're actually the third person that we've had on a conversation with that has done their ACL.
Yeah.
Completely coincidence. I don't know why we seem to do this.
What is it about your show? Stop getting ACL rehabbers on.
No, it was. We didn't realise until after the last one. Oh, someone else now. Then when you come, I thought that's a third person. We did have a good discussion about it.
Have you guys, Sarah or Dan, either of you ever done that injury or any injury?
I've not. I used to be. So I used to be a dancer. So I used to like my undergrad's in musical theatre. So I have had some interesting injuries. I think I've done something similar to my knee, but not quite my ACL.
Yeah.
So I get an occasional pain in it. So like I can't like prolong run because my knee's just like,
Yeah,
we're
that
not doing this
sucks.
today. So, and I remember going to the physiotherapist, and I didn't. Sorry, this is completely again tangent by me. I didn't realize that it's actually your inner thigh muscle that supports your knee. So I remember going to the physio, and he was like, you just need, he's like, because your quads are so good again because dancing. He was like, but your inner thigh is shocking. I went, oh, okay then, I'll just start doing that. So yeah, I have done that, but never done my ACL, and I'll just touch that just to make sure that doesn't happen. I'm
Yeah,
not
touch
jinxed.
wood.
I've had an ankle ligament injury, but what didn't wasn't a massive thing. I was like borderline ready for them to actually snap, but luckily it happened when I was playing soccer. Let's just get it right. The conversation. I got a bad tackle on my ankle, and it was at the time I ran it off, and then I woke up the next morning and I couldn't walk. And then that's when I had to give up. I used to play flag as well, and I had to give up flag because of that injury, because all the twisting and turning on your ankle.
Oh, that sucks.
So that's the worst I've done. It wasn't snapped or anything like that, but it was just a really bad bump to it. So yeah, so that's a nice positive topic to start a conversation.
Touch wood. Everyone touch your head, and
Yeah.
that's not gonna happen to
I
anyone.
mean, I've got my best friend like broke her tibia and her fibia in one
Ooh.
swift go. Yeah, and she's now got nice big metal rods in her leg. So do you know what? I'm not like that, so that's okay. Sorry, Molly. Molly listens. Sorry, like she like
Yeah.
not again. Stop telling people.
Excellent. So, as I've listed, Kate, you've got so much involvement with loads of different sports across your professional, personal life. When did American football first enter your kind of sporting interests?
Yeah, that's interesting because I think we didn't really have a lot of American football in Australia for a very long time. But I probably got into it in the same way a lot of people did through TV shows and movies. And, one of my favorite TV shows ever was and still is Friday Night Lights. I just think that is the greatest TV show ever created. And Peter Berg is one of the most talented directors there is, and for him to have directed that Super Bowl commercial just recently on NFL Flag, oh my goodness, absolutely love it. Biggest fan of his. But yeah, I loved Friday Night Lights. I loved those sports documentaries you can get on KO on Prime, and KO is a streaming service we have in Australia. And I loved sort of the All or Nothing Michigan Wolverines, and the Last Chance U was another one that I think everyone got around. And those were the start of it. I guess Friday Night Lights started it, but I also fell in love with American sport and how they produce sport, any sport. I started going to America a lot when I was in university. I'm a big skier, you might notice. And I've got the skis behind me. And I love going over there to ski in the big mountains in the US, because I think that there's a really specific type of skiing there. It's a lot of huge mountains, high altitude. It's pretty extreme. And the powder snow is, I believe, some of the best in the world with the steepness. So you can go to Japan and you can have powder. You can go to Europe, you can have steep, but you can't get the combo that America has. So love that, and love Colorado and my Colorado Buffaloes. And kind of got into it all through that. Whenever I was over there, I would try to time my trips with some sport, American football or NHL, NBA. And football, I guess, turned out to be my favorite one through all the other reasons. And yeah, I just follow. I think I followed the stories of individual players, specifically those that come through college, and you just get wrapped up in that whole journey. And before you know it, you're following a whole team and you're watching every program and every chat show about it, aren't you? Yeah. So that's how.
Yeah, a lot of stories coming out of college for Colorado this off season, hasn't there?
Yeah, it'll be a big one. Yeah, I don't know. I should have obviously tipped to go number one pick. I'm not sure if he will. I think there's a lot of good players, but Travis Hunter might be as well. Whether he will be able to play two ways, defense and offense, it'll be interesting. he is
Yeah.
absolute freak, and he deserves to be picked high, whether it's whatever position he's picked for. So, and it'll be interesting to see how Coach Prime then reacts and sort of retools the team while they're gone. So it'll be an interesting next season.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been very easy for him to go this summer and go try and get an NFL job losing his two key players. So it's good that he stayed there. He's obviously said himself he's building something, he wants to stay there. So, like you said, it'll be good to see how we can retool and kind of hopefully continue success. So it'll be good to watch where Travis and Shearer go in the draft. So we'll keep a wee eye on that as we go forward.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating. Love to get Travis on the 49ers. Maybe. We'll have to make some interesting trades, I think, to get there.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to go one or two to get Travis by the looks of it. I think that's where we're looking at them. Yeah, I mean, like said, he said himself he wants to play both ways in the NFL, but it's when he gets to the league and the coaches go, "There's not a chance we're letting you make those hits and play a receiver at the same time." But they'll let him try in training camp. We know that. We'll see what happens after that.
Exactly. And I say go for it. You know, if someone's going to prove, like, there's always a first for something. And yeah, Prime did it back in the day. I know that was a long time ago, but who knows? Versatile player. There's a lot of rest in American football. It's not like they're playing 90 minutes of nonstop running bursts, is it? They are doing short intervals and they are getting hit, but you can train the body to do a lot of different things. So it will be interesting. Yeah, I think the biggest concern is injury and his size with a lot of the teams picking him.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see come April for that one. So, Kate, you are the voice of the sport in Australia. How did the opportunity come about for you to cover American football for broadcasters in Australia?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess there's not been too much American football around in Australia until recently. And I guess because I love the game so much, I would, as a sports journalist, look for any opportunity to write about US football, NFL, gridiron, whatever you call it, and the stories that were coming out from here. And some of the coolest stories were Australians playing in leagues here and making their way through to college, or becoming the punter for a team in the US, or some of the girls who started playing and then went over to be part of the WNFC, which is the Women's National Football Conference. It's the equivalent of the NFL for women, obviously very small at this stage, but growing. And I became fascinated by these stories and took any opportunity basically to write about them, basically nagged all my editors letting me do these stories. They're sort of small fry when it compares to the other sports in our country, but they let me. And I guess through that, I became the person covering those kind of stories. And very early on, years ago, I reached out to American Football Australia and I said, if you ever need a commentator or you want someone, I'm your girl. Make me that person because I like it so much. I obviously commentate football, soccer, hockey, swimming, athletics, but the NFL and American football is actually my favorite code. And if I had a choice, I would commentate that above all the others. Now, obviously, there's not a huge market for it yet, and the money isn't huge for it, but I have fortunately been able to kind of make it work with other work. It's not my number one income, obviously. Yeah. And I guess they took a punt on me, which is interesting because it's not often that you get the main play-by-play caller to be a woman. And they used me. American Football Australia is run by a man called Wade Kelly, who I respect a lot. And Wade just put his trust in me and said, yeah, we want you to call the Nationals of flag football. This was last year. And that was probably the first big event they had run and broadcast. And apparently they liked it. So I got called back. And that's how it went down. I think people maybe didn't before previously consider women as play-by-play callers, but it was really cool for this sport to go, yeah, Kate can do it and not kind of see gender. And actually, it's an interesting thing as well because then it allows for a really nice balance and difference if you have a male analyst or a male sideline commentator, and a former player who's a male can be a really nice balance with a woman's voice on a play-by-play versus analyst call. So that's a long way of saying I put my hand up early and I forced them into hiring me because they got so sick of me. So nagging them.
Yeah, I mean, something we'll come to cover a wee bit later on. You are playing the long game. It might pay off for a couple of years' time. It's something coming your way. So I was reading an article that you wrote last year. It was about covering the A-League as a woman, and it was just about a year ago. It was the first ever all-female commentary on an A-League weekend fixtures. That's crazy to think. Like, it's brilliant that the A-League decided they were going to do that and have a full all-women media team. That must have been a bit of pride to be involved in that.
Yeah. So for your listeners who don't know, the A-League is our top flight football league. It's the Premier League of Australia, although it's not quite the Premier League. It is our Premier League, and I do commentate the Women's A-League. So it was only, as you say, last year that we had one full round of female commentators do the whole round, which is pretty crazy considering the men have done rounds and rounds of football commentary the entire existence of the sport, and they've commentated women's and men's. And it's only recently that there's actually been a push for women's voices to be on the sport, because finally people have recognized, and marketing gurus, it's taken them this long to realize that once women hear women in a sports broadcast, they actually see themselves as part of it and included, and they become fans. And it's a huge it's a business decision in the end, because the research shows that when women hear the women's voices calling the play, they're more inclined to become fans. It's so often that women feel excluded, and not necessarily overtly, but they'll just get a feeling this is not for me when they hear blokey bloke kind of sports. If you think about rugby league, or we have rugby league, you have rugby, but I'm sure you'd have examples of blokey style of commentary or coverage where women might just feel that's not really for them. And as soon as you put a women's voice in, it's amazing how it opens up audiences. So football in our country is figuring that out, and figuring out it's not just a good thing for society, it's actually good for the bottom dollar and for growing the audience. Because the thing is, the blokes are already watching, they're going to watch anyway. The big market opportunity is in women, and we saw that with Taylor Swift and the NFL. How many women started watching the NFL because they wanted to watch Taylor Swift? How many young girls started going? And that's, I think, really the future. Women need to be on the play-by-play. They need to be in the booth. And at some point, I think that will happen. And I really hope that it does happen someday with the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, in the NFL, there's some amazing female sideline reporters. There's nothing to say something like an Erin Andrews could go up into the booth. She probably knows as much about the game as any male play-by-play caller there is. And it's hopefully one day something just takes, like you say, just give someone the trust and the confidence to go and do it. And then that breaks the barrier, because it doesn't mean a guy knows more than a woman just because they're a guy. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, Sarah probably knows more about this sport than I do. So.
Well, the funny thing is, I guess, is I understand the reasoning for having a man be an analyst, because they're usually former players, and you can't really top Tom Brady or someone like that. You can't really necessarily say Erin could be as good as him, because she doesn't have the experience of playing the game. But the play-by-play and the hosting is a whole different ball game, and someone doing Kevin Burkhardt's job is a different story. And there are already women who are calling the play in college football next to a male former player who is the analyst. And as I said, it creates that really nice auditory balance where you've got a male and female voice, and listeners love that. They might not be able to tell you exactly what they enjoy about the sound, but that is something that people usually like, especially in radio. And so I think the conversation probably won't necessarily go, women are going to be in the analyst role, because that's tough to put a non-player. Maybe with flag football they might, but there's certainly an argument to have women at some point in the play-by-play position.
Yeah. I mean, in our case, it just means that I talk in such a Scottish accent that we need Sarah to translate. That's why we work very well.
That's why we bounce off. Yep.
What we
I'll have
found as well.
subtitles.
Oh, don't talk to Dan about captions. Oh, because obviously it's an AI system that picks up the captions for these, and it just doesn't have a clue what Dan's saying.
No.
It's great.
After we do every recording, I'll go on and I'll do the editing and do the auto captions. And some of the words that it comes up with. Saquon Barkley has been the bane of my life this year because AI picks up every possible combination of letters and words with Saquon Barkley's name, and I have to change it every single time. So it's been a nightmare. Most of the time I spent editing the podcast is doing the captions. The rest of it takes about 5 minutes.
Oh, it does. It takes forever. That's actually the worst job, doing the captions.
Some of these is quite relevant to what we've done. We've had conversations with some flag football players in the UK since we started, and what we found having a female on the panel as well is it opens up the topics of conversations as well, because a lot of women wouldn't be comfortable having certain conversations about injuries and female bodies and reactions to sport. If that was just me and another male having that conversation with a female, that conversation wouldn't happen. So we found that it also brings another layer of topic of conversation that you can then go and have your guests being comfortable having. It's been really good, hasn't it, Sarah?
Yeah, it's been wonderful to be part of a bigger conversation, because obviously we obviously talk about football often, but it's the wider point of female sports and what women go through playing sport that traditionally no one would understand. Because and it's been wonderful to be able to have people open up and want to share those with us. And that's why I'm here. That's it.
You're the token woman. Hey, I think being the token woman, I kind of hate that term, because even if you are the token woman, you're in there, and it means you're good enough and you can do it and take your opportunity. There's a good reason why people want to put a token woman in, if you call it that. They want the female perspective, and rather than take that as a bad thing, because I'm sure everyone who is that person is qualified enough. I think take the opportunity and show everyone that you can do it just as good, because there's a reason they want you there. It's for that female perspective, just like you say, Sarah.
Yeah. When me and Gav started this, and we thought we would need a third person, and we both worked with Sarah briefly. But I will say this public, we didn't get Sarah just because she's a female. She's very good at what she does. Being a female was just a bonus in that as well. So I will publicly put that out there so that Sarah doesn't feel like the token woman.
Don't worry, I have not felt like it.
Sarah, I can see Sarah runs this show, so
at least
she translates. Yep. She translates well.
Yeah.
For me.
It's one of those classic things where I think I run the show, but it's really Sarah behind the scenes that runs it.
Yeah, it's all me. It's all me.
Brains.
So let's get ourselves back in the room about the sport. So over the time you've been covering American football, following it in Australia, Kate, how much have you seen the game grow, kind of at a grassroots level first?
Yeah, I think really quickly in the last 12 to 18 months. It's actually unbelievable. Like the past 2 years, it has been on this growth curve so fast. I think partially it is impacted by the growth of the NFL. Naturally, that's the marketing tool for all American football, really. And once streaming made that really accessible to Australians, we can stream it through the day. It's a pretty good time. If you work from home, it's on at 11 a.m. You can watch it on later if you miss it. Streaming has made it accessible to everyone for like $20 a month. Our streaming service, I'm sure it won't last, because once the NFL hears this podcast, I'm sure they listen to you, Dan, all the time. Once they hear it, they're going to go, why aren't we charging more in Australia for the platforms? Because it's really pretty cheap for what you get on that service called KO that we have in Australia. But it's in the last 2 years, I think, that I've really noticed it. And especially given the growth of people watching, that's translated into the growth of people playing at a grassroots level. There are new clubs cropping up. There are women's teams cropping up, second and third string teams cropping up, just even here in Sydney. I actually started playing, giving it a run around during COVID in 2021, just because I can throw a bit of a football. I used to throw javelin, and I came down to training and started throwing balls with the guys and just started, fell into being their quarterback on Friday night training, which was super fun. They were all stunned that I had an arm that could match it with the guys. And yeah, I think even watching that grow and getting to know all the people and seeing new faces and people coming over from rugby, girls coming over from AFL to play it has been really interesting. And then, of course, the announcement that flag football will be an Olympic sport has driven it further. And there are trials for state teams. There's a really big push by American football right now to get a national team together and get it organized and training regularly, and create more of a program. There's funding now for that as well, given it's an Olympic sport, which makes a huge difference at a grassroots level, because usually the sports need so much funding to get off the ground. And given it will be LA Olympics and then Brisbane Olympics, which is our home Olympics, there's a real interest in making that growth continue so that we'll be able to have it as an Olympic sport here. And so, yeah, I mean, in answer to your question, it's been astronomical in just like the past year.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. It's like, since they announced it to be an Olympic sport, we've spoke to many people across the sport, and the growth has just been crazy. And the big thing they do mention is it's all about funding, and making an Olympic sport just opens up so many more avenues to funding to make the sport grow and grow, which is great to see. Recently you covered the NFL flag Australia-New Zealand national tournament, where you had Marshawn Lynch over supporting that. That must have been an amazing experience for everybody involved, having him there.
Yeah, it was. He is so funny. He is literally as funny as you see on all the Instagram clips and social media viral clips. He is the same person. Just don't get him started telling a story when you have to be somewhere in the next half hour, because he tells such good stories, but they go on forever. But he is hilarious and a really good guy. He was so great with the kids, really loves just being around and helping out. He's not a massive dude for photos and selfies and things. I could tell that he just really wanted to be part of helping the kids play and enjoy the sport that he loved so much. It was really cool to watch. He really took a liking to one of the kids who's in a wheelchair, one of the young boys, and he was like scooting him all around the field and giving him the microphone. He was making him the quarterback. It was just like so beautiful to watch this other side of this huge man who is famous for running down other humans, and see him so generous with his time. It was cool. Yeah, so much fun. Great to see all the kids getting into it as well. You know, they're the next generation, and some of them are spinning it already. Some of them, I was throwing a ball to this young kid this boy who just didn't want to go home at the end of the day. He made me throw him spirals for like 30 minutes afterwards until his teachers came and were like, hey, we got to take him on the bus. He's going to like get a plane now. So yeah, just being around that energy is always awesome. There's the youth. You know, the youth of tomorrow, they're not jaded yet. They see every opportunity, and especially the girls, they're growing up in an environment where boys and girls play sport, men and women have professional pathways. I think that's a really cool thing to see.
Yeah, that's excellent. And talking about kind of inspiring those young kids, as a result of that, we had two teams, one from Australia and one from New Zealand, travelling over to play over at the Pro Bowl, which was amazing to see. So it would Kew Primary School from Australia and then St Andrews College from New Zealand get over and playing in the Flag National Championships. There's not many sports in this world that would give kids that opportunity. That can only inspire other kids to take up the game. Like, seeing them over there playing in that tournament at the Pro Bowl must have been phenomenal for other kids in Australia and New Zealand to see.
Yeah, I think it would be. I mean, all the kids all the teams that were competing in nationals to be the team to go over knew exactly what was on the line. Most of them have never been outside their sort of neighborhood. Some of these kids are pretty disadvantaged as well. Some of them come from states, and there was a school from the Northern Territory, and some of those kids they would never have left the state before. So to come to nationals was even a huge trip for them. To go to America, which a lot of Australian adults haven't been to, it's a 16-hour flight halfway around the world and then another flight to get to Florida. So, that's an opportunity that any kid would dream of having. Then they're never gonna give up the sport now. Once they come back, right, they're hooked for life. And I think once the other kids, they'll tell all their friends, hopefully they'll make little teams and start playing flag football. And there's going to be a nationals every year. And with now the Olympics coming up, they'll be able to see it on TV. I just think it's going to be a self-fulfilling thing. And it'll be fascinating to watch how quickly it grows, especially in regards to how the other sports are growing as well. Because I know like football, like soccer for girls is a massive growth area at the moment because of the success of our Matildas in the World Cup recently in 2023. I'll be interested to see how flag football kind of emerges among all those other sports, because we're such a sporting nation in Australia. There's a really competitive space to be playing sports.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's about having role models. You mentioned there about women's football. Obviously, you've got Sam Kerr over doing the things that she's doing. She must be a great inspiration for young females to get into football in Australia as well. Flag football, you've got Cody Fullers as the NFL flag ambassador. Do you think having a female flag ambassador will also inspire young girls as well to get into the sport as well as young boys?
Yeah, I mean, having her as our ambassador is awesome. She has put in so much work into the game. She's been playing tackle. You'd have to ask her, but I think more than a decade. She's been playing for no money, for no credits, for nothing other than love of the game. She obviously transitioned to flag as well. She's been coaching. She's really big at growing the game in Queensland and here in Australia. She's been such a great ambassador with the lowercase a before she was even made a global ambassador. So I think it's awesome that Cody has received that recognition, because she has been, like, last year, even 2 years ago, when they went to Malaysia to compete in the Asian Championships, can't remember what it's called, but it was, Asia, they had to basically pay their own way. Most of them had to pay their own flights. They don't have even enough sponsorship or funding to get flown over there. So I think it's awesome that Cody's finally receiving some recognition for all the unpaid work and unthanked work she's done. But there are so many others like that. Like, I have to say, there are girls who have been doing that for years. There's girls playing tackle that have been over to the US, paid their own way. As I said, there's a woman called Renee Hahn, red hair, who is one of the leaders in Sydney for the game. She's coaching as well. Really has been such a star. Amanda Howson, Shiloh Phillips, Hayley Tagaloa-Smith. I could rattle off a number of them. Olivia Manfrey is another one who's fascinating. She was playing Aussie rules, went to play flag, went to that Asian Championships, and now has received a scholarship to go play in the college in the US. So she's our first Aussie college product, and in Div 2 college at the moment. But I think that it's only a matter of time before Div 1 colleges start offering those scholarships. And I really hope that Liv gets one, because, again, she's someone who works so hard. In terms of men, there are also men to be thanked for all of the growth, because they just want to bring the women up with them. So I think all of the Aussie guys, there's Brad Howard. He's one of the quarterbacks. He's been unreal. I could name the whole team. I think everyone involved in this sport has been doing it for the love, because there's no money in it. And that's what makes it such a cool community.
Yeah. I mean, Sarah, I hope you took notes here, because I think Kate's just gave us a full list of guests for the next day.
Yeah, I need to go. Hunt down.
Get them all on.
Yeah.
Kate, just make sure you put a good word in for us, Kate, after this. They want to come and talk to us.
I will. Sure.
Talking about, obviously, moving on, we'll talk about some Aussie players in the NFL that are great ambassadors for the country as well and can inspire young kids. So you mentioned there about Aussie rules. There's a lot of now transitioning from Aussie rules to playing in the NFL. At the moment, you've got Michael Dixon, Cameron Johnson and Mitch Wisnowski all playing in the NFL. Obviously, Cameron's on IR at the moment, but the transition from Aussie rules to the NFL is, it's kind of a bit like we've seen over here with the Irish players as well, where they've got that kicking technique absolutely nailed down in the NFL. Like, wait a minute, these guys can actually do this. And what I love about the Aussie rules is they seem to now think, well, because they kick the ball end over end, it's actually now becoming a technique to kick the American football like in Aussie rules football. So these guys are now creating these pathways for other people, but kicking shows that anybody anywhere in the world can get into this sport without having to go through the college system, doesn't it?
You broke up a little bit there, but
I think... I like that. I was just saying that these players are basically playing their own sport and kicking their shape of ball, and it's now creating a pathway to the NFL of being a kicker or a punter, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so funny listening to you hear you say end over end kick. We just call that a drop punt. That's a standard drop punt, and every kid, even girls, we grow up learning how to do a drop punt. If you can spiral it, fine, but a drop punt would be how you'd kick to kick in an AFL game because it's easier to catch. So it's end over end, you've got your hands up, it's easier to catch. And it's easier to direct the ball where you want it to go as a drop punt. So I think that, as you say, it's totally changed the game because punters now from Australia know how to not only kick it 60 yards, but they can drop punt it to land in the corner just before the end zone and it can bounce backwards, so it's not going to go out. It's changed the game entirely, and I think you don't really recognize how powerful punters can be until you have a good one. The Chicago Bears got Tory Taylor this year, and everyone, if you pay attention to the Chicago Bears punting, whenever they were deep in their own, it didn't matter because Tory would just get them right back to the other side within 5 yards of the other end zone. It's going to be interesting because every Aussie kid can kick it at least 60 yards. Like, that's a normal kick. That's no problem. We have the 50-yard line in an AFL oval is about the edge of where you'd be kicking a goal. You could probably kick it longer, but if you're not kicking it for goal, you're just kicking for distance, I'm sure everyone can get 60 yards pretty easily. We grow up doing that skill, and I think Americans grow up throwing it. So I think the thing for us is when we get over there, we have to learn how to throw a football because all the punters I've spoken to come back, they're like, yeah, it was fine, I was kicking well, but when they just want to toss the pigskin, I sucked.
Yeah, no, it's amazing to see. I mean, I've been in an AFL game. I'd watched it on the TV, but I don't think you'd realise the size of that oval until you actually are in the stadium. Mm-hmm. The length that they can kick the ball is absolutely unbelievable. The length they can punch the ball, never mind kick it, blew me by surprise as well.
You punch it and you kick it. So, and then you can run with it for 15 metres and then you got to bounce it. There's all kinds of weird rules. It's pretty chaotic. But if you like people running into each other and kicking balls, it's almost, I would say, if you like Gaelic football, you probably love AFL. And actually a lot of Gaelic footballers have come over and played AFL and been really good, especially the women.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the punters and the kickers in the NFL don't take as many hits, but they'd be well versed at taking a hit anyway if they were to take one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Someone we didn't mention there, obviously, was probably who's been the biggest success coming out of Australia to the NFL is Jordan Mailata. Obviously, winning the Super Bowl with the Eagles last weekend as well. That victory will have been well celebrated across Bankstown, New South Wales, and across the country, wouldn't it have?
Oh, yeah. He was on the front page of every newspaper. Jordan Mailata is our favourite national export right now. Everything is about Jordan Mailata. You know, first Australian to win a Super Bowl. It's pretty amazing. It's taken this long for an Australian to go over there and win one. And as a non-punter, as a O-line guy, it's even more exciting. I remember watching clips of him when he was in school playing rugby, and if you haven't found them, please do a deep dive into YouTube and find them, because he was an absolute monster in high school. He's standing, double the size of every other kid, and I think he's doubled in size or tripled in size since then. Like, this guy is a freak, and him just bowling people over. I think they don't give enough credit necessarily to that O-line for what Saquon Barkley has been able to achieve. He's obviously such an incredible running back, but that ain't happening unless Jordan Mailata is having his way with the defensive line all the way through the game and all the way through the season. He's been unreal, and I love how he's just such an Aussie guy. He's from out west in Bankstown, which is in Sydney, kind of one of the lower socioeconomic areas. and just a guy that loved sport and had a dream. Gave up his opportunity to be a National Rugby League player, which was a $5,000 contract or something, and now he's the star on top of the world, winning the Super Bowl, earning multi-millions. It's a pretty cool story.
Yes. With all these kind of role models and inspirational people for American football in Australia, what's your hopes for, let's just say, the next 5 years of the sport in Australia?
Well, we've already got one of them, and it's the Australian game coming down under, which I'm very excited about. There's a LA Rams game coming in 2026, which will be unreal. My hopes, I would love the flag to really grow here. I think that is a sport that suits so many Australians. It suits AFL, netball, basketball. Kids here grow up playing all these ball sports and would really easily transition to NFL flag. I would love to see more coverage of the game here, more coverage of our games. And I think at some point, Dan, to see women, as I said, calling the play at some point. I don't know if that's happening in the next 5 years or it's going to take longer, but it's already happening in college football. Those women are amazing. They're good enough. And I just think that would be the next step for the coverage to really elevate.
Yeah. Do you want to pitch yourself for the job at the moment? Do you want to use this platform to pitch yourself?
Hey, yes. I mean, that would be a dream. I think at some point, especially with NFL flag, with women playing the game, there need to be women commentators. They already do it over in the US in basketball. You know, there are women commentators calling the women's NBA. And yeah, I think if you're really opening up the floor for women to play and be involved, let's get it happening on all aspects. Let's have women owners. Let's have women GMs. We need more women coaches. We need more women in the broadcast and in the booth.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yes, I will take. If anyone does hear this, I'll take the job. Sure.
Doesn't even know what it is yet, but you'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think they're not coming thick and fast, the offers, but sometime maybe.
I'm sure in the not too distant future, an opportunity will hopefully present itself for you.
If you need anything over in Scotland, I'm willing to come over for you, Dan.
Oh, you should. Sarah, get that clipped. Let's keep that bit recorded.
Hey, actually, is there a game coming to Scotland? What's going on there? They're going to Ireland. Sure enough,
we're desperate for a Murrayfield NFL game. I think it will happen at some point. I think they'll see what happens, how Ireland does. And obviously they've had quite a good presence in terms of the Pro Ireland team have done such a good job at building that sport in Ireland and building that coverage up. And to promote ourselves, that's sort of what we would like to replicate here. There's loads going on in Scotland for flag in particular, and we are trying to encapsulate it all together. So, hey, if anyone's listening, listen, I'll happily go sit in Murrayfield in an October game. It'll be cold, but I'll do it. It's okay, everybody.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
well, that's going to happen, Sarah. You got to make that happen. Yeah. That's happening. They're going to Scotland next.
Yeah, I think that's what's happened a lot in Ireland. The Pro Football Ireland guys, they were over at the Super Bowl there. They've basically talked this into existence, and all credit goes to them. I think what helped as well is they get the college game over in Ireland as well. So I think last year the college game was huge. And obviously they Pat McAfee and all that over as well for that, and that just exposed at what it just looked like one big weekend party. I think the NFL looked at that and thought, we want a piece of that. And I think what they've also got the advantage of is having that connection with the Steelers in Ireland as well, which has made a massive difference. But reading back the NFL Ireland guys at Pro Football Ireland, they basically have been working with the NFL UK and the Steelers for a number of years now. So they've been doing a lot of work in the background on this, and for all credit to them, I don't think this would have happened without them talking into existence. So we've started the campaign to get a game in Scotland. That's the next thing.
It'll be interesting to know what.
Can we play it like some iconic? Like I imagine there's a castle behind. I'm thinking similar to kind of St Andrews vibes, but with an NFL field. Maybe you could put a field on St Andrews. That'd be useful. We could play golf after.
Well, you can see the castle. You can see Edinburgh Castle from Murrayfield if you stand at the
Oh,
right point.
okay. Yeah,
So
right. Okay.
it's
I need to
there
get
for
there.
you. But it would be interesting to know because obviously the Ireland and the Steelers obviously have that connection, but it would be peculiar to know what team they would pick to come here.
Yeah,
I feel like it would end up being a New York team, wouldn't it?
yeah.
Because a lot of like Glasgow, for example,
No,
like
surely
when
it's
New
the
York.
Vikings.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would take that. I know I have several Vikings fans who'd be very happy at that. But I feel like if the game was in Glasgow, we would have to pick a New York team because New York was built upon the grid that Glasgow had already had in it. So, which is a fun fact for anybody listening.
Yeah.
But I'll start my campaigning. Jags have already gone to London, so I can't have them, unfortunately. So they're close
Yeah,
enough.
I feel it probably would be an East Coast team because a lot of Scottish people moved across there and kind of a lot of well maybe the older generation now would have lived over there, and so it probably would be an East Coast team you'd see come across if they're going to try and make some sort of connection between the two countries. I think you'd be a probably would be a New York team if they were going to do it, but if it's a Giants, Gav would be absolutely delighted. But
We'll take the Bills.
we'll take it anybody. I don't care who comes. Just get an NFL team in Scotland. I don't care who's playing. Just get us a game. We've got enough stadiums to do it as well and enough facilities. So let's just make it happen. Roger, I hope you're listening. Get it sorted. Talking about travelling, Kate obviously mentioned earlier on you do a lot of travelling, which we'll come to that in a wee second. But part of your travelling and one of the major trips that you made last year, and I mentioned it earlier on, is to Lahti in Finland to cover the World Flag Football Championships. That's when me and Gav came across yourself and the coverage you were doing, and that's where our initial conversation started. But what was that experience like? Like, talk us through like, the decision to go and do it, and then the experience of being there.
Yeah, I guess I'd never been to a flag football world championships before, so it was a first time. It was very exciting. I wanted to go over and be part of it because, as you know, I want to be part of this growth of flag football. I think it's got to have female voices, and if you want that to occur, you have to be part of it, be part of the change. And so, yeah, I said to the international Federation of American Football, I'm available. I'll be over there. I'll come over with the Australian team. And they said yes. I guess they liked me enough that I could come. So I went over and I was doing some travel writing as well. So I kind of timed it with a bit of other work, which was fun because I've never been to Finland. And gee, you guys got to get to Finland. It is awesome. I did 2 weeks traveling around Finland before the World Championships, and we went everywhere. We went up to the North Pole. We went to the land of the midnight sun where the sun doesn't set for the whole day. We had saunas every day. There was lake swimming, reindeer. I mean, they got it all over there. It's awesome. And we were swimming in the sea in Helsinki after dinner at 11 p.m. and the sun was out. And then we're having a sauna. I mean, the only thing that really suffers is your sleep because you just forget to go to bed. It's that light. And we also saw the Northern Lights. But Finland is a cool place. Flag football is awesome. And the trip culminated in Lahti, which was the site of the 1952 Helsinki Olympics. That's a really cool place too. And it was just awesome to be part of. Can you hear that beeping?
Somebody's car alarm.
Someone's car alarm is going off. Hang on. Sorry about that. But so what was I saying? Helsinki is awesome. Lahti is awesome. We were part of the World Championships, and I was there kind of with the Australian team doing some content with them, and then got the opportunity to be part of the commentary team with the flag football. Now that was awesome because it was produced by the Fox NFL Sunday production crew. So the director was a director who would work on Fox's NFL games on Sunday night. The producer was a fully professional Fox producer, American, and we had also Renee Larone, who is one of the star producers from NFL Network, who had a lot to do with NFL Flag. And actually, I think she produced that. She helped produce that NFL Flag Super Bowl commercial. She's been working with them forever. So we had this like crack team of people. And for a commentator, that is absolutely the dream. I just love working with people who are better than me, who are more experienced, who are going to teach me or be the best guide for what I'm about to do. And of course, naturally, there were a couple of ups. Oh man, there's always a different microphone. And I think this was a new microphone. So when I was starting to use it, I didn't realize that the button I was pressing was the sneaky. I was talking back to my producer, and then I had to go live and I was still pressing the sneaky, which obviously turns your mic off and allows you to speak back to the producer. And he didn't know what was going on because he could hear me, but it wasn't coming through on the broadcast. So at one point we thought my microphone was broken when they crossed down to me. It wasn't. I was just being an idiot. But we figured that out, and it went really well. It was cool. It's always interesting when you jump in with a team you've never worked with, and you're in a Finland, and you're with teams that you're covering teams you might not have met before, and I'm interviewing players I'd never met before. You really quickly have to rebuild a rapport, and you really quickly have to make people trust you. I love that part of being sideline. I mean, I love being in the booth, but sideline, you're in the action. You're talking to the players one-on-one. You're building connections and getting to know people that are going to be stars. I know, who I interviewed sideline, he's going to be a star. He might be an Olympian. Vanita Crouch, the QB of the American team, she has been an absolute goddess of football forever, queen. And being able to interview her, I just felt so privileged. And also the young rising stars as well. There are lots that you'd never heard of and you get to kind of chat to. But it was unreal. The only drama was, apart from the microphone havoc, then after that, I was actually flying out after the gold medal match that evening back to Australia. And of course, the broadcast ran long. And my flight was at 12:30 midnight. And the broadcast was supposed to finish at 9:30, and it was an hour and a bit drive to the airport. So I figured that would be okay. I'd get there at 10, like 2 hours before the international flight, probably fine, like probably a little bit close, but fine. Broadcast ran until 10:30. The speed limit is 130 on the highway. 130 kilometers, by the way, not miles. Yeah. I don't know what that is in miles. 130 highway Lahti to Helsinki. I don't think we did the speed limit at any point in the entire journey. We were absolutely flooring it and made it with 5 minutes to go to check our bags in. Like, the airport's empty. We're running our bags over me and my husband, who's with me, running our bags over the linoleum floor, clattering everywhere, threw our passport at the check-in desk, and we made it. But that was pretty stressful. So that was the only thing. I remember chucking my headset off, unconnecting all the cords that you have when you're live, and just throwing them at my producer. I had this lovely Finnish producer who was such a lovely person. She was just so helpful, and I just threw everything at her. She'd been buying me snacks and kind of keeping me fed and watered all night. I didn't even get to say goodbye. But yeah, it was awesome. So a lot of things happen in live broadcasting that you never see. Yeah. And that was one of them. But there are so many things that it makes it such a fun job, because you're there, you're in your little bubble with your producer and your director. They know what's happening. Everyone at home sees what's happening on the good side of things, but they don't know what else has happened and what craziness happened. But you have to keep a straight face, and I find that really fun.
One thing that I'm going to steal something Gav brings up all the time, because he's not here, so he'll be delighted that I've brought this up. One thing about the Flag World is I was sitting in Scotland watching that stream online. The production, now it makes more sense now, because we didn't know the background to it, but the production that they made to put that event out was out of the floor. It was nothing that had ever been seen before. And a lot of it, introducing this sport to new audiences, is that the production and what you're putting out to let people watch. And that makes a massive difference to any sport, but especially a sport like this where you want to introduce new audiences. Having that with the scoreboard and the instant replays and all that makes a massive difference, doesn't it?
100%. It's all about production. And this has actually been proven in studies. I'm really interested in this stuff because a producer once told me best. He said, your audience won't necessarily know the molecular structure of shit, but they'll be able to smell it. And what that means is, they won't necessarily know why this broadcast is it sucks, but they'll be able to tell you it sucks. And so when you actually recognize that there are production elements that make sport what it is in terms of camera angles, music, lighting, all the things that make a great movie, make a great sports production, commentators, everything, even down to nice uniforms or having a floor manager who can time everything correctly, it all matters. And so when you see the difference between your local flag and then you see the World Championship produced by an NFL production team, you really do realize, gee, we've been underselling so many sports, and all the women's sports particularly that cop this all the time because there's not enough investment. Women's football that doesn't have the 20 camera angles that men's, and people say, oh, it's a bit boring, women's football, not into it. Well, you might be if we had the money to give it all the other things that men's football does, because it's a TV show. It's not just a sport now. When you put a TV camera on it, it becomes a TV show, and you got to have the characters, you got to have nice outfits, you got to have good lenses, good camera angles, great soundtrack. And that is so important. And I think people need to recognize that sport is more than sport when it's on TV. It is the production of it. So they've done studies on this, by the way. And the thing I said about women's football, they've taken all the production elements out of it. They've put stick figures on a screen and made people watch women's football compared to men's football as stick figures. And people like the women's more, which was so interesting because women are a little more aggressive. Like they don't defend as much. In soccer, that is. So, yeah, I think that is really a fascinating point. You got to make that point when people tell you that women's sport is no good or they don't like it as much as the men's, because often they won't be able to tell you the molecular structure of shit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, we believe that flag football is an elite sport, just currently being played at an amateur level. So that production made it look like an elite sport and sound like an elite sport, which was phenomenal to watch. Like I say, anybody across the world could have watched that as well, which puts massive eyes on it as well.
They did such a great job. I mean, shout out to the NFL productions team and IFAF for investing. It was unreal. They had the whole truck there. They, there were 10 different people. There were graphics guys. There were more people than I would work with on a standard football broadcast here in Australia. So that gives you an insight into the money spent, and it well invested, I would say. Excellent.
Just one more wee trip that we want to talk about. You, January 2024, so just over a year ago, you made the trip over to San Francisco for your first 49ers game. I noticed the George Kittle shirt behind you there as well. Like, first of all, how did you become a 49ers fan?
Oh, yeah, I love the 49ers. I love Kittle. I think that I loved San Francisco. Originally, I became a 49ers fan because I was playing one of those PlayStation games. And I'm not talking Madden. I'm talking one of the old, like PlayStation 1, PlayStation before it had a number after it. American football games. I didn't understand it, but I remember just choosing the 49ers each time. But San Francisco is a city I really love. We have to fly through the West Coast to get to America. So whenever I'd go to ski, I'd usually fly through San Francisco or LA. Now, LA is a crazy place and a huge place that I've been stuck in a lot of traffic. But San Francisco, it feels like Sydney's sister city. It's surfers. It's got this laid back vibe. It's on the coast. There's great weather. It's sunny every day. And I just really fell in love with that city. So it's mostly about the city as well. The players, I love them. And Kittle is my favorite. But my husband and I got engaged there, which helps. And San Francisco, I feel like it's a home away from home. Yeah.
Very interesting to see it. San Francisco is my favourite city in the world as well. I love it. Visited a few years back. Somewhere I'd always wanted to go, like the opportunity to go and do it. And now you've just mentioned it, it's Sydney's sister city. That makes perfect sense now. I'd never thought about it like that, because Sydney's also my second favourite city I've ever visited, so that makes perfect sense now. The thing is, I just love that laid-back vibe. That's just me. I just don't take life too seriously, and I think that's what I loved about the Australian way of life. I visited, I think now, nearly 20 years ago. I just loved the laid-back way of living, and like you say, San Francisco is very similar to that as well. But so how was your experience of your first 49ers game then? What was the hype around that like?
Oh, God, it was so good. I mean, it was the 49ers against the Packers in the divisional round playoff. And we were sat at the back in the nosebleed as far away as we could afford, which was the low, but it was, US $600 per ticket. And it was awesome. I mean, you can't get better. Live atmosphere sport is something you can't replicate, but live atmosphere in an American football game is just the best atmosphere ever. They got the jet flyover comes over, the American national anthem's happening. There's the fireworks at the start. It was unreal. It was like 85,000 drunk fans and cheeseheads and Packers fans yelling at us, and the game started slow, it got fast, 49ers were behind, they came back from a deficit to win. It was unreal, had everything.
Right. Just something you mentioned a wee bit earlier on, and we don't want to get you too excited by saying this, but we obviously mentioned the Rams are coming over to Melbourne in 2026 to play. Strong rumours it will be the 49ers that they are going to be playing. How would that be for you, getting the 49ers in your own country watching? That must be quite exciting to look forward to.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be unreal. I can't wait. I can't believe it's actually happening. We talked about this as fans of NFL for many years. I suppose like you guys do in Scotland. I wonder if it'll ever come. You think it'll come? Maybe we'll get a game next season. There's talks about it. I don't know. NFL flag is big, and it's actually happening. So I'll definitely have to get down to Melbourne. Hopefully I can have some kind of role in it.
Yeah, I think anybody that's listening knows that you're wanting this, and we hope that happens for you as well. So we're talking about a debate that's I've picked up on it in the last few days. We're talking about, obviously it's going to be played at the MCG, which Melbourne Cricket Ground, which is an iconic stadium across sport, not just in Australia, not across cricket. It seems to be a lot of people are thinking it maybe wasn't the right venue to host an NFL game. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and it's a valid point that it is a cricket oval shape. So I don't know, you guys ever watched a rugby game on a cricket oval? Because we often do that, just because the MCG is the biggest stadium in Australia. It has 105, maybe 100,000-ish capacity. I think that's the big thing, is that it will get the most people in, and people don't want to miss out. It's the only time an NFL game has come to Australia. It might be the only time for a long time. So they don't want to miss out, but it is going to be interesting how they cope with the distance between the stands and the field. Because if you think about American football, part of the cool part is the stadium rises straight from the sideline. So even at the Niners at Levi Stadium, where you're way up the back, you have a pretty good view. You're actually still pretty close to the action because it's elevated, but you're looking straight down at it. Whereas I think it's going to be interesting. We're going to be back another, could be in the middle, 40 yards from the sideline and then up in the stands. The good thing about the MCG is it is quite vertical. So it is mostly like a ring that is vertical around. You're not going to be that far away in terms of it's not sloped upwards at an angle. But I don't know how they're going to combat that. There'll be screens, obviously. Maybe they'll put seats on the deck. That's my hope. They'll put even more seats in, and we can get 110,000 and break a record. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm torn up about it. I obviously would love to have it in my own city as well, in Sydney, because we have the stadium that would be structured for that. We have the biggest football-shaped stadium in Australia, 85,000 capacity in Sydney. And I mean, it would be useful for me not to get a flight, selfishly. But I do understand that the 100,000 is a big deal, and it's iconic. I mean, the location of the MCG is pretty cool too, because you guys, it's in the middle of the city, and you can just walk out the door and go down to Carlton and find all these amazing bars, and it's in the middle of all the streets. There's a whole sports precinct there. It's very accessible. So that all plays into it. Yeah. And if you live in Australia, they kind of consider Melbourne the sports capital, because it has the Australian Open, because it has the footy, because it has the MCG. I disagree, respectfully. But I think if you want to include as many people as possible, it's probably the fairest.
Yeah. NFL always go for it. It's all about the image, isn't it? Having an NFL game in the MCG is like the perfect image for the NFL.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. All the AFL fans who know the MCG are going to naturally be interested, and they might have a chance to then market to those new fans and gain some new audience members. So that's probably another aspect of it.
Yeah. Now, Kate, you've obviously done your pitch, so I'm going to do ours. If there's any Australian broadcasters that want 3 Scottish podcasters to come over and cover that NFL game, we will make sure we're available for it.
Hell yeah. See you down here.
Put a good word in for us, thank you. Excellent. So we'll do is just move on to the last wee topic, Kate, before we wrap up. So you mentioned earlier on yourself, we've got early 2028 coming up where flag football is going to be an Olympic sport, which is something I don't think any of us could ever believe would have happened or would have ever seen happen. So a phenomenal bit of news. Then it follows on to Brisbane 2032, which you mentioned yourself. So looking at the flag at the moment, so the Australian women are ranked 12th in the world, which puts them second in the region for Asia and Oceanic. And then the men are 16, which puts them third in the region. So we've talked about the qualifiers for the Olympics is going to basically be the World Championships in Germany. Do you give them much of a shot at making it to LA?
Australia? Yeah, I do. I definitely do. I think we have not necessarily invested heavily in football, flag football until now. And because we just received the Olympic funding, it has to come in the year after the Olympics. So Paris was last year. Then in January, the next round of funding kicks in. It's only just kicked in. And over the next 4 years, I bet 100% there are going to be players from other sports, wherever it may be, that are not necessarily Olympic sports that are going to come over and hope to get an Olympic medal. And we just have so many AFL players. We have so many NRL players that are well suited to this game. There are so many possible athletes we can draw on that will be interested, I think, in getting a medal, and especially playing against potentially a Patrick Mahomes or another star of the NFL. I think that's a huge draw card, is being part of America's game over in America, in LA. That can't be underestimated. It's going to be huge. I think I don't know if Australians are fully equipped with an understanding of how big this will be. But I can tell you, in LA, America, they do sport better than anyone in the world. This is their sport. They're going to make sure it doesn't miss. It's going to be huge. Yeah. And that's a draw card for so many people. And as soon as that message starts getting out, I think we'll see an interest. And I bet you our stocks will rise.
Well, fingers crossed. Now, we're hoping we might not know the answer to this question, but you might have a wee bit insider knowledge. We would love flag football to continue to be an Olympic sport going forward. We don't want this to be a one and done. Do you think we're still going to be playing the sport in Brisbane?
Yeah, if I have anything to do with it, hell yeah. To be honest, it has to get some mainstream it has to grow a little more in the mainstream here first. I am waiting to see what happens in LA, because I think that is going to be the big platform for it. And as we move towards that, and how much marketing investment the NFL puts into NFL flag here, because we've seen how much the interest in NFL has grown over the years. I think if it continues at that rate, there's a big argument for it. The argument against it, I have heard, is why would we have American football if we could put in Australian football? So there's some that would argue that we should have AFL 9s be our Olympic sport, which is a interesting one as well. I think that AFL 9s has certainly not got the global nature of the NFL, which would be the argument against that. But certainly we'd have a good chance at winning a gold medal. So for my part, I hope it's the NFL flag.
Let's just have both. That's what we want.
Let's just have both.
We could have both.
It's sort of like my hopes for flag for for 28 is that, obviously, I remember when rock climbing got announced for the 2020, the 21 Olympics, and even the absolute uptake that had from there to this, last year's Olympics, was absolutely incredible. Yeah. It was such a bigger platform, it was such a bigger stage, and that's sort of what I hope happens. And probably actually it will be slightly bigger again because it's in LA and they're going to do it. And rock climbing seems to be staying for the most part, so hopefully it can be, and it is a global sport, as much as obviously it is US based. There's World Championship, there's all of this stuff going on. So yes, my hope is that it will have the same impact that rock climbing has had.
Well, apparently 20 million people play this sport in 100 countries around the world. I don't think you can say that about many sports.
Yeah.
So if that's an argument that they're using, I'm happy to go with that, because the more people we can get playing American football, which I love, the more it's going to grow and hopefully, be part of everyone's enjoyment around the world.
Yeah, obviously we've also seen a few weeks ago that USA Football have partnered with Football Australia, so they've started building that relationship between the two countries. So hopefully that then fosters those conversations that if it lands well in LA, like we said, it's going to be all about how they make it produced and how it looks. If they can make it look so good and that we know that it is, then hopefully future Olympics will go well. The audience for that sport was ridiculous. Let's bring that here as well for us. So yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed that we get flag football at the Olympics in Brisbane and future Olympics going forward. So let's see how that works.
And we'll be there.
Unfortunately, Kate, we would love to sit here and talk to you for hours, but we'll need to wrap things up there for you. A huge thank you for coming on and joining us in Tartan Touchdown today. Hopefully we can have a conversation in person one day about this great sport that we all love.
Thank you so much, guys. Go Niners.
For everyone that's watching and listening, Kate, obviously most of your content you put out is on Instagram, so feel free to give yourself a wee shout out at the moment for your content on your Instagram.
Yeah, please do. Follow me. It's Kate Allman, Kate Allman _ I never received enough teasing in school for that name. I don't know why. Kate Allman. I am woman though, and I'm on X and Instagram. Not on any others because that's too much for me to handle. I'm just a busy person. So get in touch. I've also got a website if you want to check that out.
Yeah, I mean, you go, Sarah, you go.
No, just to make a point, Kate, as promised, I've followed you on LinkedIn, so whatever you need me to endorse you on, I am right there for you.
I'm on LinkedIn as well. I'm a professional, guys. You can, please do endorse everything.
There's so much more, Kate, that we could have spoken about because you're involved in so many things, so we'll maybe need to get you back on and continue the story in the future.
I'll get on when you guys get that Scottish game happening for sure, and maybe before that as well.
Yeah, well, we'll have you on the podcast. Like, you'll be there with us if that happens. That's what will happen.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Excellent. Sarah, thanks for being in the chair with me today.
No, thank you. Such a great conversation. It's been absolutely wonderful to speak to you, Kate, and such, I think, as well, an inspiration for people who, don't necessarily decide that they want to make it with the sport and on a playing perspective. It's just so wonderful to hear that there is a continuation on for that. And if you love the sport, you don't necessarily have to play it at a level. So it's been fabulous. Thank you so much. It's been really inspiring.
Oh, I'm so glad you say that. I think that's actually my biggest hope. I'm someone who was never going to be an Olympian. I played a lot of different sports, but I was very good in high school and kind of petered out after that. But it's really something we need to work on, that women not only can play sport and be part of elite sports, but they can also be on the other side in production, in management, in ownership. And I think that's really something that I would love to tell little girls. If they hear a female broadcaster, they might be able to hear what they could be at some point.
Yeah, great point from both of you. I appreciate that. So for everyone that's watching, listening, thank you very much. Please make sure you're following us on Instagram for all the latest content and updates on who is next and our in conversation with. Till next time, we'll see you soon.